Let us look at the German tactical setup of an infantry regiment for the second battle at the Courland Pocket, which took place in November 1944. In total, the Soviets launched 6 separate offensives against the German forces trapped in the Courland Pocket. Citino notes, the German force warded off all 6 Soviet offensives, a masterpiece in defensive positional warfare against a powerful enemy. So when Germany finally capitulated in May 1945, there were more than 200,000 German troops still in the pocket. Geographically, Kurland is located in western Latvia. In October 1944, the Red Army was able to trap large parts of Heeresgruppe Nord, Army Group North in that region. In total, more than 30 German divisions were in the pocket, although some were later evacuated by sea. In total, the German semi-official history counts 5 battles, whereas the 5th battle had 2 phases, thus 6 different bars. The battles lasted from late October 1944 until mid-March 1945. As mentioned, the Soviets failed several times to destroy the pocket. One might argue it was due to attacks that were limited in their intensity, something that seems to be underlined by the previous quote from Citino, which I had shortened before. The German force trapped in Kurland, renamed Army Group Kurland in January 1945, warded off all the Soviet offensives. A masterpiece in defensive positional warfare against a powerful enemy. But in the end, these 30 divisions stayed right where the Red Army wanted them, in a self-imposed prison camp. Yet the last part is in stark contrast to what Mawdsley points out, noting the exceptional importance of the most rapid liquidation of the Courland Pocket. The Stavka in mid-October 1944 ordered Marshal Wasilewski to carry this out using the 1st and 2nd Baltic Army groups and massed artillery and air power. Of course, the initial plans might have changed later on. Main point is, these battles are barely covered, as always caution is advised. For the second battle, the semi-official Germany and the Second World War series notes the German losses with 13,667 men. Only by a narrow margin could the front be held, as can be seen from an entry in the Army Group War Diary of November 24th. Headline about today, it went well, barely. So let us look at the report. It is from a German infantry division, sadly it is not mentioned which one. It was likely one of the divisions of the 2nd Army Corps, since the report mentions the losses of Tigers. There were 2 heavy tank battalions in Courland, yet one, the 502nd, was shipped out before the 2nd battle, yet the 510th remained. In November it was attached to the 2nd Army Corps. The report is rated Geheim, Secret, and named Erfahrungen aus der zweiten Abwehrschlacht im Kurland. Literally, experiences from the 2nd defensive battle in Courland. One copy of the report was sent to various divisions of the 2nd Army. Be aware that the 2nd Army was not located within the Courland Pocket. The command of the 2nd Army added the following note before the report. All the experiences made here are in complete accordance with the orders of the army. They are to be evaluated again for the forthcoming major battle. Let us look at the German defensive setup. The page had the title Tiefengliederung eines Grenadierregiments in der Verteidigung, literally meaning deep structure of a grenadier regiment in the defense, probably better translated with defense in depth of an infantry regiment. Note that grenadiere at this point were basically regular infantry. First, in July 1942, the motorized riflemen were renamed to Panzergrenadiere, and then in October 1942, all regular infantry regiments were renamed to Grenadier regiments. Be aware that this was not an ideal setup. To quote the report, the already low manpower, further weakened by the heavy preparatory attacks, required the manning of the main line of resistance to be thin, and despite the seize of all possible replacements, its depth is still inadequate. Here's the basic setup. The area of the regiment is vertically divided into 2 battalion areas, and horizontally the 1st and 2nd line of defense. Vertically, the battalion areas are then divided again into 2 company areas each. As some of you might know, a battalion should have 3 regular companies and 1 heavy company. So why only 2 areas? Well, the answer is simple: reserves. Each battalion reserve consists of 1 company. If you know my Soviet defensive tactics at Kursk video, this setup is less likely surprising. But back to Courland. The company in the first line also had reserves. Those consisted of 1 squad each. Be aware that the symbols will be explained when we cover the various weapons placements. The regiment also had two reserves. One at the second defensive line consisting of a platoon and an engineer platoon near the regiment's headquarters. Additionally, there was also a company from the engineering battalion located at the second line, which was there to improve the fortifications and served as a divisional reserve. Sadly, there is no scale on the map, nor was any information given on the overall dimensions. Let us take a closer look at the different weapon placements in the defensive setup. Be aware that the regular infantry company in the Infantry Division 44 table of organization and equipment had an authorized strength of 13 light machine guns and 2 heavy machine guns. You soon will notice that the numbers shown are far below that number. One might argue that some weapons are not shown, but considering that in several cases there's a number next to the weapon symbols to indicate their numbers, I don't think this was the case. Also, for those of you who know German tactical symbols, be aware that there was at least one major revision over the course of the war. In early war, a heavy machine gun system was different to a late war symbol. Particularly the anti-tank and infantry support guns saw a major revision as well, as you can see here. Yet let us look at the setup. For the first line, here we have the light machine guns that were in position. The symbol slightly differs for the light machine guns that were not in position. You can see here for the machine guns in the company reserves, located behind the first line. Additionally, we also have 2 times 3 Panzerschreck located in the first line as well. A bit further back is a group of 2 heavy machine guns. Note, a heavy machine gun by German designation was the same as a light machine gun, but with a different mount, namely a tripod to pack quite some functionality. So the difference is not in caliber. The other anti-tank defenses were about the same level as the company reserves. We have 7.5 cm Pak 40s here, whereas the one on the far left is actually situated into the area of the neighboring regiment. This likely was done to provide flanking fire and or due to how the terrain was situated. Be aware that I covered the Pak 40 in a museum in another video. There were also 2 more groups of 3 Panzerschrecks each. A bit further back at the level of the battalion reserves there are more heavy machine guns. Furthermore, there are 2 machine guns marked with an R. According to the Army Regulation on Tactical Symbols, this indicates the origin of the weapon. So these were captured Soviet weapons, since the Germans used R for Russian. This is also confirmed by the experience report as well. Additionally, here we find also 2 more groups of 3 Panzerschreck, 2 groups of 3 medium mortars with 81mm caliber. Be aware that at the beginning of the war this was designated as a heavy mortar. Again, this changed throughout the war. Finally, we also have a platoon of 4 Sturmgeschütze, assault guns as well. For the second line, we have Soviet-made machine guns located slightly before the line. Then there's a single Panzerschreck located here, although likely the 3 was forgotten in this case. Furthermore, there are 2 7.5 cm light infantry guns here. If you want to learn more about this weapon, be sure to check out this video on my second channel. Then there's a group of 3 heavy mortars. These had a caliber of 120mm and were a direct copy of the Soviet mortar with the same caliber. Behind these weapons was again a captured machine gun. Further behind left, protected by another machine gun, there were 2 150mm heavy infantry support guns. Finally, at the very end, the regimental headquarters, there was a team of 3 Panzerschrecks. The experience report highlighted various points that are relevant or directly related to the setup. First, about the reserves, it is noted. Reserves, deployment of the battalion and regiment reserves in line with the intended depth, see Annex 1, which is our visual defensive setup, has proven effective. The battalion reserves are to be employed in the main defensive area in such a way that they are located on favorable approaches to the main line of resistance, but that they are also in possession of a decisive switch position in the terrain for defense. A switch position is a position that is oblique to the front line and should prevent the enemy from rolling up the front in case of a break-in. Additionally, building of reserves must be reorganized on the evening of each day of battle. Apart from the formation of new company and battalion reserves, the formation of a small regimental reserves might be possible at best. After 1 to 2 days of major combat, one division is no longer able to create a new divisional reserve on its own. The higher command must help it to do so. The importance of radios with the battalion reserves is also stressed. The report again and again repeats at various points that the regular telephone lines for communication will be destroyed very soon by Soviet artillery fire. It literally states at one point, wire connections to battalion reserves are futile. Furthermore, it is noted that radios should be coordinated with the neighboring battalions, since helping out those units might be crucial during combat, and has been proven to be successful. About the anti-tank defenses, there is not much mentioned at all. The only aspect I could find is that the Soviet tanks usually withdrew once they had suffered some losses and continued to fire from a distance. One part covers the importance of a proper fortification of key positions, and the captured Soviet machine guns are mentioned as well. All command posts, observation positions, infantry support gun positions, 13th and 14th Company command posts, and anti-tank gun positions must be developed as strong points to ensure points in depth and equipped with machine guns, possibly, if necessary, Russian machine guns. This is likely related to the following assessment of the Soviet forces, which was likely the most negative assessment in the whole report. The Russian leadership does not know how to exploit initial successes. Often the whole, albeit narrow, was beaten. All that would have been needed was powerful, determined follow-up thrusts into the depths with simultaneous rolling up of the flanks to bring down the defense or at least to advance into the artillery positions. Note, from my experience with German reports, the lack of aggressiveness from the enemy is a rather common complaint. About the selection of positions, the report notes the following. Selection of firing positions not only according to terrain survey, but also in consideration of the map. Avoid obvious map points as much as possible. The importance of fragmentation-proof installation of guns, fortifying of all command, observation and communication posts has again been confirmed. The low casualties in men and material have justified that not enough can be done in this respect. This is related to the report's statement about the Soviet artillery, which is very positive. It is noted that both army level and divisional artillery fire is well concentrated and supported by effective and surprising Katyusha attacks, and that due to continuous fire and additional harassing fire into the depth of the divisional area, the German telephone lines are usually neutralized early on. I hope you got a better understanding of a late war defensive setup. For a look on the company level and the defensive setup of a village in winter 1942, be sure to check out this video. Thank you to Andrew for reviewing the script. Special thanks to all my supporters for making trips to museums and the military archives possible. As always, sources are listed in the description. Thank you for watching and see you next time.